What if every day when you woke up, okay, you did this? You write out, okay, on a sheet of paper on your computer, all right, I'm so happy and grateful for the fact that I am now earning. I'm so happy and grateful for the fact that I am now earning, and put a number there. I'm now earning whatever. Let's say you're making $10,000, whether it's a day, a week, or a month. I'm now earning $20,000. Okay, I'm now earning. And then in the very next step, you started to see yourself earning that amount of money. You started to see yourself and how you felt. You start to see yourself and how many people you would impact. You start to see yourself as you upgraded your knowledge and your skills, and you developed, and you started to feel proud, and you started to feel in alignment with making that amount of money. Okay, so you started to visualize. Why? Because visualization is simulation, and you start to fire off the neurons in your brain. Right? You start to fire off the neurons in your brain. The neurons that fire together will wire together. That's part one. Then, what would you need to believe? What would you need to believe, all right, in order to earn twice as much money? What would you need to believe about yourself, right? What would you need to think? And then, what would you need to do that day, right? That week, that month. All right, so in my trunk, when you set a goal, like you just said, I'm so happy now earning $2 trillion company. When you set that goal and you haven't built $1 million company, your brain deletes it because it activates the uncertainty and fear centers. So set a goal that's just outside of your comfort zone, all right? Just outside of your comfort zone that scares you a little bit, but also encourages you and inspires you. So what would you need to believe? What would you need to do? What would you need to think? And then what skills would you need to upgrade? Whose help would you need in order to make that a reality? So we go from ideation or imagination. We go from ideation and imagination, which is the Einstein part of the brain. All right. And then we ask ourselves all those other questions so that now we could put a path towards that.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, John Assaraf, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, target the right audience.
Hey, do you know what this Rubik's Cube has to do with whether or not you will achieve business success or not? Everything. Let me explain. If you take this Rubik's Cube and you try to solve it on your own, there are literally tens of thousands of different moves that you can make to try and solve it. And 99% of people do not solve the Rubik's Cube when they try. Why? Well, because first and foremost, they don't know where to start. They don't know the algorithm or the process of how to make the colors that they want be in the place that they want. And so they randomly try things over and over and over again. Now, here is what's crazy. If you hopped on YouTube and watched a 6-minute video and just followed the step-by-step process that is taught in some cases by 8 or 9-year-old kids, you could solve this Rubik's Cube in less than 10 minutes, even after you made a few mistakes. Now, why do so many people try to figure stuff out for themselves when the answer already exists? And I want you to think about this in relationship to your business. Whatever industry you're in, is it true that somebody has achieved the success that you are looking to achieve, whether it's to make your first 100,000 or 250,000 or 500,000 or $1 million or 10 million? Is it true that in the business that you're in, somebody's already doing well? Well, I assume you said yes. So why aren't you doing what already exists as far as a blueprint or a path? And there's only going to be one of several reasons. Number one is you might think you're lazy, and I don't think you're lazy. I think you just might be disciplined to certain habits that you have right now. But if you said, John, I don't know where to go to get the answers that I need, I want you to think about business in these terms. To build a successful business to any level, there's a very specific pattern or algorithm to generate leads, whether it's one extra lead a day or 10 or 30. And you can generate leads from your own contacts. You can generate leads by creating content, on the internet. You can do direct mail. You can do advertising on radio or television or on Facebook or Instagram or many of the other social media channels. So all of the how to generate leads already exists. But even before you generate leads, you have to know some of the fundamentals of marketing to the right audience. So you don't want to just be, putting ads out there or content out there without also knowing that you should be speaking to one person who needs and wants what you have more than anybody else. And an easy way to do this, take out a sheet of paper and write down avatar number one. So profile number one. And write down who needs and wants what you have. And so if you want to know who needs and wants what you have, just get a profile of your existing clients, of who's buying my products or services. Why are they buying it? Where are they searching to buy my products or services? Is it through networking? Is it through word of mouth? Is it on my webpage? How are they getting to my webpage? Everything can be reverse engineered to the formula of traffic times conversion equals revenue. So the amount of leads you get, whether it's cold calling, whether it's at an event when you can go to events, whether it's online or offline, you need to know how to speak to one person, and you need to speak to her or him in a way that lets them know that you have something that is going to help them.
Rule number 3, get rid of limiting beliefs.
Limiting beliefs. If we have constructive, positive, empowering beliefs, we move forward and take action. But when we have a limiting belief, like I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not skilled, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too white, I'm too black, I'm too Asian, Caucasian, I'm this or I'm that, I'm not enough of this, I'm not enough of that. Where are our beliefs? Right? We have two types of beliefs. We have conscious beliefs that we can declare, and then we have subconscious beliefs as well. Which ones are the more powerful of the two? Mike Edwards says subconscious beliefs, right? Mike says subconscious beliefs. Were you born with any beliefs? Like if you were a neuroanatomist, okay, if you're a neuroanatomist, if you were to look in the brain, where would you find your beliefs? The positive, the negative ones, the good ones, the challenging ones, the constructive, destructive. Where would you find them? What are they? Like, what are they? Right? Like, what are they? Aren't those patterns that have been reinforced based on what we learned in childhood? Aren't those patterns that our parents gave us, our teachers, our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors, right? Didn't we develop our beliefs through the imprinting years, 0 to 5 or 6, the modeling years, 5 or 6 to 7 or 8, and then the experiential years, right? All the way from birth to 25, 26, when our brain was pretty plastic and we developed these beliefs about what to believe. We weren't born with any. They're nothing more than neural patterns in the brain. Now, how many of you have heard the word neuroplasticity? Neuroplasticity, right? What is neuroplasticity? Neuroplasticity is the scientific fact that our brain is plastic. Right? What does that mean? It's not like plastic like this brain. It means that we have brain cells, right? So the brain cells, okay, there's a cell, there's an axon, okay, or a body, then there's dendrites at the end, right? And there's synapse gaps in between the brain cells. So those brains have potentiality. And let's say we are told that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not worthy, you'll never amount to much, you're too young, you're too old, you don't have enough knowledge, you don't have enough skill. If those patterns are created and those neurons are active and releasing those neurochemicals from a receptor or from a sending neuron to a receptor neuron, and that happens often enough, that neuron structure or pathway becomes more solid, just like developing a highway system in a city. And the pathways that are active and reinforced when we are young become the default pathways, just like the highways and the roads that you take every single day to go to the stores you take. Now, if it's true that our neural pathways are not fixed, but the pathways that are easy to run across, okay, or to fire the signals, okay, are the ones that are dominant, is it possible to let go of the limiting, destructive, disempowering beliefs that somebody else gave us for the most part, or we experienced? Is it possible that through conditioning, programming, deliberately choosing our beliefs and reinforcing new neural pathways, we can create new neural pathways? Right? So if a neural pathway can be created and neural pathways can be deactivated, then why not deliberately and consciously evolve yourself?
Rule number 4, create a selling process.
When you figure out some of the math and then you ask yourself, okay, how am I going to get my product or service, knowledge or skills that I'm selling, whatever it is that you're selling, how do I get that in front of the right prospects? And I'm going to keep coming back and forth, either online or offline. Online or offline. How much do you think achieving business success is an inner game thing? Do you think that it's a combination of winning the inner game and also winning the outer game of what you need to do? You and I own the most powerful biocomputer in the whole universe that can help us achieve our goals faster and easier than ever before. But if we're focusing on why we can't, if we're not focusing on knowing the numbers, if we're not focusing on understanding how do we take our product or service and create marketing and a selling process to get it in front of people, then we're missing the syntax, the process to achieve the success that we want.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, develop new habits.
If you were out of shape, physical shape, okay, how would you get back in shape? Like, what would you do? Let's be realistic, logical. If you're out of shape, you've been out of shape, you're overweight, you're not as healthy as you can be, right? What would you do if you made a commitment to be in shape? Okay, right? If you were committed to being in shape, and let's talk about physically right now, what would you do to break the pattern, the software? So somebody says you could diet, you can exercise, you can sleep well, right? Get 6 to 8 hours of sleep so you reduce your cortisol levels and reduce your leptin levels. So diet, go into the gym, visualize, motivate. Willie says start gradually, right? You can create a vision board and see yourself right in shape. right? You can start with small steps. You can get an accountability partner. You can join a gym. You can hire a coach. You can ask a family member or friend if she or he would like to, start small so you can develop the habits, Magic Touch 321, right? So what are habits? Habits are automatic combinations of thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations, and behaviors that are all automatic to do without thought. But to get to a habit, right? To get to a habit, we have to start, all right, with how we think, right? We have to continue with how do we feel, motivated or unmotivated? Well, how do we get motivated? How do we stay motivated? Then we need to know what are the behaviors that we want to take. So we want to work on an inner game and an outer game. So all of my students, for example, all my private clients, whether I'm working with a CEO or an athlete or a homemaker, doesn't matter. I ask them to commit to 100 days, okay, to develop a new pattern that they can reinforce. So do you think it's reasonable? Let me ask you a question. Do you think it's reasonable to say to yourself that I'm going to commit to 100 days to give myself the best chances of a solid foundation that I could build upon? So instead of thinking that I'm going to change a result or change a habit that I've had for 10, 20, 30 years in a weekend or in a week or two or three, that's just unrealistic. Do you think that if we just change the expectation and we said, okay, I'm going to do it fast, but I'm not going to do it so fast that I don't sustain the thinking, the emotions, and the behaviors. So here's what I want to ask you, right? If you're committed to an outcome that you don't just want to achieve and then stop, right? Then why not commit to a process that you can continue? And people will do things for either a reason, a season, or a lifetime. A reason, a season, or a lifetime. Here's what we know, okay? Let's say you've been earning a certain amount of income for the last, 10 years. All right, within range. And you want to maybe double or triple your income. Isn't it worth it to be disciplined to sustainable change versus, rapid change that goes away? If we are creatures of habit, then why not get really good at develop empowering, constructive, positive habits? Why not get good at upgrading our own mental and emotional and behavioral software so that once we do it, we can just sustain it because we set a new expectation for ourselves? There's too many people, okay, out there teaching, fast food thinking. Lose all the weight in 7 days. Well, you're going to gain it all back because most of the weight you lose is water, right? Let's see how much money I can make this weekend. Well, that's great, but you're not going to sustain it because the habit is not there. This is why people who win the lottery lose it within 3 years, and people who lose money that they've made it gain it back within 3 years because they have the neural pattern of the behavior.
Rule number 6, market your business.
When I analyze businesses, whether they're startups or doing $100 million in revenue, doesn't make a difference. Usually there's something in one of those three or all of those three that is missing. And so when we start to focus on getting the inner game right, plus what you need to do, and then you do it, the results are pretty easy. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. Are there people out there, all right, that could buy your product or service, but you don't know how to reach them, right? Is it possible that there's people out there that need what you have, your product, your service, your knowledge, your skills, whatever it is that you're selling, offering to the marketplace? Is it possible that you just don't know how to reach them? So that means that it's a skill set issue, right? Now, in 2021, We know how to do those things. There, like I said earlier where I started, right? The fact that there are 2 billion people a day online means that there's more than enough people to get in front of. Listen, in the old days, right? When we didn't have the internet, we had to advertise, in the newspapers, postcards, magazines, radio, television, or set up a store in a shopping center. But now just about every single business, is online offering information, content to develop a relationship and rapport with prospects. And they're taking them through a process. Yellow pages, that's right. Thank you, Muse Debbie Muse, right? So yellow pages. So here's the thing. One of the formulas that you must figure out is where I started before. Traffic times conversion equals revenue. The added version to that is traffic times conversion plus repeat business and referrals equals exponential revenue. Traffic times conversion equals revenue. Now, traffic times conversion plus referrals and repeat business equals exponential revenue. And so one of the things that you need to be thinking about, and if this is the only thing that you leave today, I'm going to give you a couple things. Number one is I need to adapt. I need to adapt to the market and use all the tools available to me, but not use every one of them. I want you to ask yourself the question I posed earlier is what has to happen in order for me to just double or triple the leads that I get? Leads. The prospects coming to see you online or offline. If you just focused on that question, what has to happen in order for me to double or triple my prospects or leads? And I'm not sure who said that you picked up the answer, Virginia. Yeah, this is my New York Times best-selling book, The Answer. If anybody's read it, it is a New York Times bestseller for many, many, many years now. One of the best books on the inner game and outer game of business. Let me put that back over there on my thing, but I didn't come here to sell you on my book. I want to give you information. If anybody wants to get the book on Amazon for $15 or less, it'll blow your mind. And The Lux Coast, you're reading it now? Awesome. So when we understand there's already a process in place and we discover how do we take our product or service and create the marketing? How many of you, are you good in marketing? Are you good in marketing? Meaning, I'm not talking about branding. I'm talking about getting your product or service with the right message in front of the ideal client. If you're not good at marketing, I want you to let me know, are you good at marketing? Yes or no? So you're not good at marketing. Think about this. If you're a business owner, there's a couple of different hats that you have to make sure are being taken care of, right? In business, if you're a business owner with a product or service, you have to have somebody who's doing the marketing, right? Which is developing your brand, creating your messaging for how you're going to promote your product or service to people who don't know you. You have to learn how to sell, and selling is doing something for somebody, not to somebody. You need to learn how to manage. You need to learn how to either develop products. You need to learn some of the technology needs that you have. There's a lot of different hats that you have to wear, or you have to make sure that somebody in your company is wearing that hat, right? And so imagine if you're need surgery, but you're not a good surgeon. What would you do? You'd have to find, how do I get somebody who could do the surgery? So for those of you who are not good at marketing or sales, which is the oxygen required for any business, regardless of how good your product or service are, the question you want to be asking yourself is this: who can I hire to help me? Or who can I barter with to help me? Who can I partner with to help me do my marketing and sales if you're not good at that? So hire, partner, barter, or defer payment to get it done. Because without marketing and selling, you really don't have a business. And those are skills that either you have that you need to develop, or you don't have, you're not good at, you don't want it, but you still need to figure out as a business owner, how am I going to get it done? Your job as a business owner is not to do everything, but to make sure that everything that is oxygen and is required gets done.
Rule number 7, work on your self-image.
If your self-image is not in coherence with the goal that you want to achieve, you'll sabotage your success. We discovered that self-esteem, if there's a disconnect between our vision and goals and self-esteem will drag us down, procrastinate, sabotage, rationalize. Those are the causes, or the self-esteem is one of the causes that holds us back.
Rule number 8, focus on lead generation.
You have to get the word out that you're out there, and you can do it right now inexpensively online. You can do it through networking, you can do it through being in groups, you can do it in a variety of different ways, and every one of your strategies of what you do has to match your ability to execute and do it. So don't pick a strategy like doing videos if you hate being on camera. Don't say I'm going to write articles if you're not going to write yourself, or hire a company to write for you. So pick the strategies that you're actually going to do to completion. And here's what I recommend. If you want to start solving the Rubik's Cube, start with the 2x2, then 3x3 and 4x4. Why? Because in learning the 2x2, you learn the fundamentals for the 3x3. And that translates to you doing things in business that's actually easy for you to do or easy for you to learn first. As the CEO of your company, you need to be focusing every day on marketing and generating leads, and every day on converting those leads into paying customers. And then every day, the people that don't buy, you need to nurture them and develop a relationship with them. And when you focus on lead generation, lead conversion, and lead nurturing, now you have a daily process of what every business owner that makes it to 100,000, 250, 500, a million consistently knows they had to figure out. And when you want to get to the next level, the next level, the next level, it's a function of more leads that are qualified, that you convert, that you nurture, and then you create some processes and systems that'll help you grow and scale. Thinking the right way is just as important as doing the right things. So don't get caught up just doing a whole bunch of stuff. Do the right things in the right order at the right time, and that'll be like opening up a safe with the right combination.
Rule number 9, manage your weaknesses.
Here's what I learned many, many years ago, and I'm going to leave you with this. One of my mentors, who is a billionaire, said, John, I don't want you to get stronger at your weaknesses. I want you to get stronger at your strengths. I want you to manage your weaknesses. Manage my weaknesses. I said to him, how do I manage my weaknesses? He says, you practice radical honesty about what you're strong in, create a plan to get better, and you are radically honest what you're not good at, and you find people to help you who are good at that. Now, here is what I'm going to leave you with. He said to me, hire people who play at things you have to work at. Hire people who play at things you have to work at. And I can fill in the blank like I did before. Say, you can hire, barter, defer payment, or partner with people who play at the things that you have to work at. All right, so if you're not good at certain parts of business, that's okay. You need to admit you're not good at it, but your job as the CEO of your business is to figure out, how am I going to get that done? By asking better questions, you get better answers. But by saying, I'm not good at that, I don't know how to do that, I don't like that, you're reinforcing your patterns in your brain. You're reinforcing patterns in your brain that are going to make you worse at it. So instead of putting yourself down, lift yourself up. Instead of coming up with stories and reasons and excuses why you can't, focus your brain on how you will, because you must. You got to clear through the noise of negativity out there. Stay positive, because people are buying, people are buying, people are buying right now. and that means that there is more business available to you. But you have to manage your mindset, upgrade your skill set, and then make sure that you're taking the right actions in the right order at the right time.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is don't be afraid.
Fear. But what is fear? Is fear something that you should fear? No. I want you to imagine as you're driving down the street in your car and a light pops up on the dashboard. A light pops up. Have you ever taken a hammer and hit the light because you don't like the light? Of course not. That would be silly, right? What if the light on the dashboard was just a signal? Maybe you're low on tire air pressure. Maybe you're missing air or water in your windshield wiper. Maybe the back trunk door is open. Isn't the signal in your car just for you to be aware that maybe something is wrong or something needs attention? Is it possible that if we stop thinking of fear as the enemy, fear is one of your biggest friends? Why? Well, when you understand how did this organism, develop and how does it keep us alive? It pays attention to things, in your external world, triggers from your external world that could cause your death or destruction. It causes you to do what? When there is a potential threat, predator or threat at the door, it lights up the fear signal, sends cortisol, epinephrine, or norepinephrine into your bloodstream, so you either know how to fight it, you run away, or you freeze, hoping that the predator will go away. So when your brain, every brain, gets this signal that there is a threat at the door, it sends a signal in the form of a neurochemical that you feel. Now, if somebody feels this threat in their body, but they don't know how to manage the emotion we call fear. Let's say there's a fear that you have a failure and what it might mean to your family. What about a fear of losing money and not having enough to pay the rent, the mortgage, or for retirement? What if there's a fear of trying something and then it not working out and you're embarrassed or ashamed or ridiculed or rejected or judged? Oh my God, if you judge me, then you're going to reinforce my low self-esteem of myself, and then all shit, then who am I? You understand what's happening in the circuits I'm just describing? So when our brain has this fear circuit activated, do you think the fear circuit causes you to go, oh, hey, let's take action anyway? Or do you think it goes, high alert, high alert, high alert, be aware, what's going on? What if you fail? What if you succeed? What if you succeed and fail? Whenever that circuit is triggered, motivational circuit shuts down. Whenever that circuit is activated, your thinking circuit shuts down. All the blood flow goes into a part of your brain to help you do what? Possibly run away, protect yourself. It's a protection mechanism. But here is what I want you to remember. This automatic trigger and circuit has been evolving for millions of years. But your specific experiences since you were born in the modeling, experiential, and the imprinting years caused you to have beliefs about things. Some empower you, some disempower. Let me give you an example. Okay, let me give you an example. When I say the word, or let me give you a different, the same example with just a little different story. If I say to you that I'd like to take a big snake about 5 feet long and let it slither across your arm and around your neck and it's a python, how many of you go, oh, wow, that would be great? Versus how many of you are going, oh my God, let me run away, get it off of me. Just think of a snake slithering on you and curling itself around your neck. How many of you are like, run? Versus, oh my God, that would be great. Can you take a picture of me with it so I can put it on social media? So is it really the snake that is the threat, or is it your concept in your brain, the meaning that you have associated with a snake that is activating for some of you the reward center, and for others, the fear center. Same stake, same stimuli. There isn't even a snake here. I just had you think about it, right? And it triggered that fear circuit for some, reward circuit for others. So it's never about the thing. So when we have fear of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, fear of disappointing ourselves, fear of failing, fear of succeeding, there's 50 different types of fears, we automatically trigger the circuit that does what? Stops our action taking. We have to understand that our beliefs drive our behavior. Our habits drive our behavior. Well, what if we switched our beliefs? What if we switched our habits? What if we upgraded the knowledge and skill required to match the income that we want? So there's something I'm going to leave you with, right? And that is this. In order to achieve 2 or 3 or 4 times more income and get your brain unlocked, you have to create an identity to match that destiny. You have to create an identity to match that destiny of the income and the lifestyle and the feelings that you want.
If you think about what makes up who we are, so obviously there's genetics, there's our genetic makeup, so our predisposition, our propensities, and that makes up a percentage of how we see the world and how we show up. But then the rest of it, we're trained on. So we're trained to see the world a certain way. So there are certain people that have something called a negativity bias. And a negativity bias is nothing more than they see the negative first. It's not that they don't see the positive, but they see the negative first. There's other people who see positive first. They have a positivity bias and they see that first. And the truth is, in almost every situation, in every circumstance, there's both. You can train somebody to recognize that there's always both, just like every inside has an outside, every one side of a coin has another side of a coin, every up has a down. That's called the law of polarity. And in the universe that we live in, there is that law of polarity. And so you can teach somebody, say, okay, if your propensity, if the way you naturally are is negativity biased first, great, be aware of that. Then flip over. We call it flip the switch. So if one side of your brain is going negativity first, great. Learn to flip the switch. Go, great. What's the positive side of that? That's a skill you can learn no differently than playing tennis or chess or music.
When you sit down to meditate, do you come with an intention then each time?
No, once I sit down, then I ask my intuition, hey, what is it that you want to be doing today? What is it that you need today? So we all have this intuition, which is different than our instinct. But this intuition, right, it's what we know before we think. And so when I sit down, I say, okay, hey, what's the intention for today? And sometimes the intention is to just let go and see what happens. Sometimes the intention is I'm searching for an answer. Sometimes the intention is, well, today focus, today let go, today just breathe. So I just listen. It's the art and the subtle science of paying attention.
Back in 1987, when I bought the franchising rights for Remax of Indiana, I had no idea how to build a company. I was, 26 years old, and but I had another mentor who I invested $75,000 to become his partner, to have the opportunity to learn from this man who at the time was worth probably $100 million. And so I was very, very keen on learning, and I didn't know how to build a business. I didn't know anything other than how to sell real estate. And I set a goal to generate $1 billion a year in sales. And I set the goal for 5 years in the future, not knowing $1 billion goal is like mind-boggling big for me. And there was an interview the second week I was in Indianapolis. I moved from Toronto to Indianapolis for this opportunity. And I was interviewed by the Indianapolis Business Journal. And I said in the interview that I had a goal for $1 billion. And the reporter said, are you aware that there's two companies that have been in the state of Indiana for 80 years, one, 100 years, the other one, and they haven't hit $1 billion in real estate sales in all of these years? And I said, yeah, I know. It's Graves and Tucker. And you can let them know that I'll be the first. Right? And as I said that, I almost felt like I put my foot right in my mouth because I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Right.
Long story short, 5 years later, we sold enough franchise, recruited enough agents. We did $1.2 billion and we were stuck, which is a great place to be stuck. And I was asking myself, how is it possible that I'm training these agents with strategies, with tactics, with selling skills, marketing skills? We were like the gurus of here's the books, here's the cassettes, here's the trainers, here's like out of the deep end. And the agents who, for example, would make $30,000 a year kept making $30,000 a year. The agents who made 50 kept making 50. The agents who made 100 kept making 100. And so I realized that they weren't missing the skills or the knowledge. There was something else at play. And what helped me from the age of 19 to 27, 28, 30 was every single day, and I still do it today, and I'll share this with you in just a little bit. Every single day, I was priming my brain with the beliefs and the self-image required to achieve the goals that I want.
When we talk about reprogramming, I think the important thing to understand is 99.9% of what we think, what we feel, and what we do, although most people think I'm in control and I'm the one doing it, it's really non-conscious patterns that are repeating themselves over and over again. So let me explain. When you and I were born, the only neural networks that we had were for survival. Right? We didn't have any beliefs of are we good enough? Are we smart enough? Are we worthy? We didn't have any experiences to show us that that's a scary situation, that one's not. Snakes are safe, or snakes are dangerous, or spiders, or heights, or whatever the case is. So over the course of the first 7 to 10 years of our life, our brain's plasticity switch, our brain's switch that connects all of these neurons and creates the neural map in our brain is being created in the form of millions of connections per second. By the time we're 10 or 12 years old, that switch basically goes off, and now there's more selective creation of neural patterns based on what we like, what we dislike, what we experience, what our parents tell us, what our teachers tell us. Up until that time, we're just an empty, open nest where everything's being formulated. And so what happens is after 10, 12 years old, we're pretty much running on autopilot. And we become conditioned or trained to see the world a certain way, to feel certain things, to behave in certain ways. And so most of our life we're working on autopilot because the non-conscious processing parts of our brain is working at 400 billion bits of information per second and trillions of electrical and chemical reactions per second happening without our thinking about it. And so for adults, 25, 35, 45, 50, we have these patterns that we have to revamp, almost like a remodeling of our own brains. If you think about, when you're driving in a town that whether you're at home or in your city that and all of a sudden you see a detour. If you take a detour and then you start driving down that new detour for a day, 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that detour becomes the new easy road to take. Even though you're used to going a certain way. The brain works the exact same way. So if you've got these patterns that are easy for you, your brain wants to take those patterns that are easy for you. Easy thinking patterns, easy emotional patterns, easy behavioral patterns. Why? Number one, because it's less energy that the brain needs to use. So law of best use of energy in the brain is where it goes first. So the way you retrain your brain using, for example, the 4R process is you recognize my patterns of thought, my patterns of emotion, my patterns of behaviors. And you ask yourself, are these going to help me achieve the goal that I want to achieve? Whatever the goal is. It's just yes or no. If they are, great. If they're not, then what you want to be doing is saying, okay, how do I change that path? How do I change my thinking?
I'm learning that I could be still. I'm learning that I could be aware of my thoughts, but then let them go, and I come back to focus on a sound wave in this particular meditation. And then what happens is, over a period of practice, you realize that your body disappears. You're no longer in this physical thing. You're no longer having these waves of thought after thought after thought after thought after thought after idea, positive, negative, and everything in between. And in that space of recognizing that I'm not my physical body, I have a physical body. I'm not my thoughts, I have thoughts. I'm not my emotions, I have them. When you start to train yourself to use your brain better, more efficiently, more productively, you realize that I am one with this, incredible universe. So what's the big deal about that? Well, the big deal is that if I am one with this universe, with this energy, with everyone and everything, and that's where everything percolates from, is it possible that all my answers are right here, right now anyway? And the answer is yeah. And so meditation is about practicing, and we know that we have different brain waves. So right now, as people are watching or listening, they're in this beta brainwave frequency where their brain is oscillating at a certain frequency, and there's 50 different brainwaves going on at any given time. But what happens is when I move from beta to alpha to theta, delta, or gamma, I'm actually accessing and activating different parts of my brain, which now gives me this deeper, greater sense of awareness of a much bigger, onion that I'm used to seeing. So I'm living on a layer of an onion. And what if I could see like 10 layers up and 10 layers down? So all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at who I am, what I am, who you are, what you are. And in that realization, in that awareness, I can now start to have different choices made. And so meditation is a practice of awareness. It's a practice of going internal instead of external, which is where most people live their lives every day.
So the key is to really understand, first and foremost, that you have a brain. You're not your brain. The whole idea with inner size, right, is to create a pathway for you to be able to say, okay, here's how my brain works, simply as I've put it today, and here's what I could do about it to move out of a state of chaos and dissonance and into a state of coherence and alignment. So when you were born with any beliefs?
No.
Were you born with any habits?
No.
Were you born with any fears?
No.
No. So from a neuroscience and neuropsychology perspective, a belief is nothing more than this. Imagine that you're born and your brain's made up of 100 billion marbles. And every time you have an experience or somebody says something to you, you read something or you watch something, these marbles make these connections. And the connections that are reinforced go from conscious connections to subconscious connections. And once these subconscious connections are made and reinforced, they run the show 98% of the time. So a belief is nothing more than a reinforced pattern in the brain. And our conscious brain can choose what we want when we're in that part of our brain, but our subconscious mind can't choose. It's programmed from the age of 0 to 3 in the imprinting years, 3 to about 7 or 8 the modeling years, and then 8 on, it's the experiential years. And so if you have these powerful beliefs that you're good enough, you're smart enough, you're worthy to achieve the goals that you have. If you have these powerful beliefs, you are able to achieve any amount of income you choose, no matter what the amount is, you just need to learn how. So if you have these empowering beliefs, you have brain coherence between conscious and subconscious.
We're in a society that just goes. Texts, emails, phone calls, Facebook, Twitter, Vine. All these things are keeping us on this perpetual hamster wheel of do. That very few people stop and say, what am I doing? What am I not doing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? So the first part is stop. Second part is to reframe Okay, it's called the 4R process. Recognize is first. Reframe is the way I'm looking at something. And because we are monofocused, the brain cannot focus consciously on more than one thing at a time. All right, it can get distracted to that thing, then this thing, then that thing, then this thing. The art of multitasking is actually one of the worst things that you can do from a neurological perspective. Highly successful people are able to monofocus on the right things. So when you learn to reframe your brain's ability to look at this, then look at this, then look at this, but stay focused on what it is that you're looking at, you see different perspectives of it. The next part is to release the emotional stress that most people's brains are under. How do we get into this emotional stress? Well, when we have fears, there's 50 different types of fears. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear of being embarrassed, fear of being ashamed, fear of being ridiculed, fear of fill in the blank. When our brain goes on these automatic fear circuit drives, then we're in a state of fight or flight. In a state of fight or flight, over a course of a day, a week, a month, our ability to actually use our thinking center, the left prefrontal cortex of our brain, actually diminishes. Our brain gets hijacked into this fight or flight response system over and over and over and over and over again. And that response system is actually pretty healthy initially to get you going and out of the gate. But if you are always in this fight or flight response mechanism, you're on this hamster wheel, you actually start to get burnt out. And you can't think, you can't use the genius part of your brain. You can't really activate the part of you that connects to the entire universe of intelligence within you and outside of you. And so you learn to release that tension to be able to put the foot back on the gas, change the gear. If you think about what happens when you're driving a stick shift car, you put your foot on the gas in first gear and the car just goes. But if you keep your foot on the gas in first gear, you're going to burn out the engine. So what happens in the release part of using your brain is you go from first gear, pause, second gear, pause, third gear, pause. You're able to use the engine more efficiently to go faster. Exact same thing with our brains. If we learn how to release the tension and switch gears, release the tension, switch gears, that's the art of release and go. And that causes the fourth R, and that's we retrain our brain to operate at higher levels of our intelligence, genius, and abilities.
What happens if at the subconscious level, okay, so you have conscious goal, conscious vision, conscious reasons why I want to achieve it. What happens if at the subconscious level, let's say for weight, you've tried to lose weight before, and maybe you have, but then you've gained it back. What if you've done that 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times? Is that pattern, okay, the memory, the pattern, locked in the subconscious mind of all those experiences? Is it there? So here's how the brain works. You set a goal using the left prefrontal cortex of your brain, your imagination, and then right after you set the goal and you're excited because you're making some progress, your brain says, hey, last time you did this, you gained all the weight back. Why even try? Last time you did this, and your friends saw that you did this, and then you gained all the weight back. Next time you saw them, you were embarrassed. You were a little ashamed of yourself. Last time you did this, or the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times before that, you gained all the weight back, and you disappointed yourself and your significant other because they said you looked really great, and then you gained all the weight back. So you disappointed them and yourself, and you were embarrassed or ashamed, and so that pattern is there, right? Do you all agree with me so far? The pattern is there. And so if you have, and think about your imagination and your choice to set a goal is one pattern that you formulate. But if underneath there's a subconscious pattern of embarrassment, shame, failure, guilt, disappointment, etc. If that pattern is also there, then you have two opposing patterns. You have one pattern that says, let's go and do this, but you have another pattern that says, but last time you did this, you failed, or you've seen your sister or brother or mother or father or friend do this, and guess what? They gained all the weight back anyway. So why even try? I'm going to keep you safe in your comfort zone. I'm going to conserve energy, and that way I'm going to save you some time and money and energy. Does that make sense to you? That is called cognitive dissonance. That is another way of saying that's called chaos in the brain. And a brain in chaos will do what? It'll just stick around doing the things that it's comfortable doing where it's known.
Something that I learned that I think people will benefit from is an anxiety attack, stress, panic, ulcerative colitis. All of these things are effects, right? So they're effects. So the question is, what's the cause?
Yes.
Right, so most people are focusing on either, suppressing the effects, depressing the effects, masking the effects. They're doing everything but going, what's causing this?
Yep.
And if we look at the world of cause, whether it's in our physical body, whether it's our relationship, whether it's our bank account, whether it's our business, whatever the result is, every result in the physical world is an effect. So the question is, what causes the results? And one of the greatest laws in the universe is the law of cause and effect. And it states that for every effect, there's a cause, and for every cause, there's an effect. And so I got really inquisitive and curious early on with, can I control more of the cause of my results? And that required responsibility. And when I was younger, it was like I was more into the blame game. It's because of him, because of her, because of it, because of the market, because of where I live, because of my mother, my father, how old I am or how young I am, how Asian or Caucasian I am. It doesn't make a difference. So a lot of my upbringing caused me to look outside of myself. And when I looked inside myself and took the prerequisite of responsibility. I own it.
Yes.
And I can change it.
So important.
That transformed my life. That really started to put things into perspective. So when we talk about the word fear, right? So let me start off with another little premise here is most people are highly ignorant in understanding what fear is. Now, I want to make sure people heard me correctly. Ignorance doesn't mean you are stupid. Ignorance means you just don't know. We're all ignorant.
We don't know what we don't know.
Well, we don't know what we don't know, and even the things that we do know may not be accurate. So when we talk about fear, there are 50 different types of fear. All fear is processed in the subconscious mind. The automatic neurochemistry that is created as a result of the meaning that we give certain things that cause us to either be in a state of fear or a state of courageousness is all being processed in our subconscious mind. So what causes fear for you doesn't cause fear for me or for somebody else, or may cause fear in other people. So whether, we're standing at the, top of a building that's 100 stories high, some people look over and don't have fear, and other people do have fear. Whether there's a giant 10-foot boa constrictor, in front of you may cause fear in you, that doesn't cause fear in another person. So it's never the thing that is causing the fear. It's the subconscious interpretation that we've been conditioned to believe. The meaning that we learn to give something determines whether the neurochemistry of fear is activated that causes us to feel a certain way. So the feeling, of of being scared, the feeling of being uncertain, this feeling of having self-doubt, the feeling of having too much stress in our life, that is an effect, not a cause. So feelings are conscious, our ability to be aware of this stuff that's going on in our body that we either know or don't know how to handle or do anything with.
Yeah.
So feeling is conscious, fear is subconscious. And so if, for example, we have, one of the examples I use is, and you don't have this, obviously, but if I ask 100 people, do you have a fear of public speaking?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that.
I'm reading your mind. I'm reading your mind. Well, it's not your fear. And that's what I'm going to say. So the actual fear is of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged. So if we're afraid of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged, that has nothing to do with the actual public speaking. It has to do with our self-image and self-esteem and what we think of ourselves and what we believe others will say or think about us, which will affect our own self-image or self-esteem.
Yeah.
So fear is triggered based on subconscious patterns and feelings of certainty about something that may or may not be right. And so I never treat, if you like animals and you like fish, for example, if the fish is sick, you never treat the fish, you treat the water.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. I like that one.
Right? You treat the water.
Yeah.
Because it's the water that's causing the fish to be sick. And so whenever we're dealing with fear, fear is a signal. So if we're driving our car together, okay, we're driving down the street and all of a sudden there's a light that pops up on your dash. You don't go, oh my God, the light came on. No, it's a signal. There's either something, maybe the trunk opened, maybe you're low on air, maybe there's a leak in your oil, maybe your coolant in your in your engine needs topping up. The light is just a signal that something in the engine is going on. So when we have this emotion that's triggered, okay, at the subconscious level, that gives us this feeling that we don't like or we don't know how to deal with, the light goes on, okay, in our brain.
We start experiencing those emotions,
we start
those
experiencing
feelings.
those emotions. And so when we get into, so why is that relevant? And it's relevant because the number one priority of the brain, above all else, okay, above sex, above eating, above all else, is survival and safety first. So when that fear signal is activated in the brain, your brake goes on, your motivation stops, your thinking brain deactivates, and you're either going to fight it, you're going to freeze, you're going to run away, or you're going to faint. Those are the 4 F's of fear, of what happens when that response happens. And to the untrained person, it controls them. To the trained person, like a Navy SEAL, like a firefighter has to learn how to feel fear and go into a burning building. Like an astronaut, she has to learn how to step out of the space station and go work with a robotic arm, knowing that she might be blown away into space. She has fears as well. He has fears as well. And so fear is just a signal. It's not a stop sign. It's not a go sign. It's a be aware sign.
If you think about visualization is simulation. Now, here is the difference.
Whoa, that's good. Okay, go ahead.
So visualization is simulation. So when we close our eyes, or even if our eyes are open and we start to use our Einstein brain, the imagination, we now have just activated one of the biggest centers of our brain, the occipital lobe, that's connected to the motor cortex. It's connected to the motivational circuit, the nucleus accumbens, that releases that dopamine that makes you feel good, that makes you want to take action. So if you visualize yourself achieving the goal, if you visualize yourself behaving in ways that match the new belief, if you even visualize the words, or you take the words on a sheet of paper, and you read them, run your right finger across it, run your left finger across it, close your eyes, see it and feel it, your brain is creating a mental movie with the words. And as it creates a mental movie with the words, that's happening in your subconscious mind. And when you give the subconscious these instructions, a couple things happen because of the way the brain hierarchy works. Number one is survival, but then number two is safety. And then number three is energy conservation. Now, when you do something 20, 30, 40, 50 times, it takes about 66 days to 365 days of repetition to override an old habitual circuit. Not 10 days, not 21 days, 66 to 365. So if you visualize yourself achieving the goal, feeling the success that you want to feel, seeing the belief on the screen of your mind, you are actually creating a neural network through the science of neuroplasticity, and the networks that you reinforce become the most dominant networks. And since your brain wants to conserve energy, if you do this on a consistent basis, your brain says, okay, you're doing this so often, let me just make this automatic. Let me set aside the old beliefs. Let me replace it with the new beliefs. And now you've deliberately and consciously evolved yourself.
One of the things that is really interesting, I mean, just based on what you said, there is something in business, whether it's for salespeople on the phones or salespeople in person. On the phone, it's called call reluctance, and in person, it's called contact reluctance. And so if you think about what does that mean? So I have a call reluctance. I have a reluctance to call somebody that I don't know. And so when some people think about calling somebody they don't know, when they're prospecting or meeting somebody they don't know, if you think about what is it that is actually happening that causes them to feel that. So as soon as they have the thought, their neurochemistry kicks in, because the meaning that they have is, if I call somebody that I don't know and they hang up on me, they yell at me, they say something nasty to me, then they are attacking my identity. And in most cases, they have associated the attack on their identity in a negative way, such as, well, maybe it's true that I'm not good enough. Maybe it's true that I'm not smart enough. Maybe it's true that I'm not worthy. So they have a negative association with somebody's response that they don't even know about who they are. So the first thing we work on is, let's focus on your self-esteem, because it's the self-esteem that's being attacked. My self-esteem and self-worth is being attacked. So when my self-esteem and self-worth is being attacked in a negative way or unpleasant way, I'm going to process that as danger in my brain. Now, when you understand the brain's number one responsibility is to move you away from danger or pain, that's number one on its hierarchy of how it behaves. So if there is real or imagined pain or discomfort, your brain says, stop, put the brakes on, go the other way. That's what's happening. So the first thing we do is we teach people, number one, let's change the meaning that you have around what somebody else's response is around who you are or what you're doing or what you're offering them. So the first thing we work on is change the meaning, you change the feeling.
For the people who think that the law of attraction is, think, believe, and you'll achieve, first I'm going to tell you that's. So let's call it.
I love this, man. I love it.
But I want you to think of your brain just a little bit differently, and think of it this way. Let's say you love rock and roll. And let's say rock and roll's on station 95.5. If you're on station 92.1, that might be classical. If you're on station 98.7, that might be punk rock. But at 92.5, that's rock and roll. So imagine coherence just means locking your electromagnetic spectrum of your brain. Lock it and load it on exactly what you want. So what's the vision? What's the goal? What are the beliefs? What are the emotions that create coherence so you're locked and loaded to the frequency of the universe that is matching that goal? Part one. Part two is when you get locked and loaded, you've actually activated the Einstein brain, connected to the motor cortex, connected to the dopamine release in your body. And when that happens, okay, now you're in coherence, but there's another part that happens in this Einstein part of the brain. That's actually what the latest neuroscientists and psychologists are thinking is connected to this GPS part of our brain, to the frequency of where all of the tools, resources, people are that resonate with that frequency. So we've been evolving for what, 2.5 million years, since Homo erectus to now 108 billion humans on Earth, with a brain that's been changing and growing. And my belief is we're just scratching the proverbial surface. When we talk about, little quantum mechanics or quantum physics with entanglement, how we're all connected, we're all tuning into the frequencies that are us and within us and all around us. Now, when we learn to use our brain better, it's just mind-boggling how we can achieve goals and dreams that we thought were impossible to achieve before. This is the fun part now. I have a philosophy that every moment, every precious nanosecond and moment is perfect. And so when I connect to the perfection of that moment, there's really nothing to do. It's to be aware and to allow, to surrender, but not to give up surrender, but to understand that, as we are talking right now, the oceans don't need any instruction what to do. The planets that are moving in their elliptical orbits around the sun don't need yours or my intervention. The universe, the Milky Way galaxy that's flowing through the universe at 1.5 million miles per hour doesn't need yours and my instruction. So that means that every moment is perfect. So I want to connect to the perfection of every single moment, be aware of that every single moment, and realize that many things are not to my taste, many things I don't understand, but that doesn't mean that the moment isn't perfect.
Every human being has a relationship with money, and money is something that envelops people's brains about what they buy, what they don't buy, whether they buy, business class or first class or regular economy seats, whether they're always looking for the cheapest or the most expensive, the nicest or average, how much they will tip, how much they won't. We all have a money story that we've developed mostly from our parents and the people that we live near. And we developed this relationship around money and our beliefs around money. Are we good enough to earn that amount? Are we worthy enough to earn that amount? Is it worth it or not? And so one of the things that Mary Morrissey says that we should do, she says, for 7 days, write down the thoughts you have about money and notice when you're thinking and notice what you are thinking and notice that the money story you're telling yourself, is it positive, negative? Is it abundance thinking or limited thinking? Is it scarcity thinking or is it what? Fill in the blank. And so once you know your money story, and this is also something that one of our psychiatrists who works with us, Dr. David Kruger, says, once you know the story, the money story, that's when you can start to be aware of it and go, wow, where did I get these limiting beliefs about money, about my value? Where did I get these limiting beliefs of what I can afford and what I can't? Where did I get these limiting beliefs around how I behave with money? Let's say you have a car, which I imagine most people who are watching have a car. Imagine you're driving your car and a light comes on the dash. It's like, oh, I wonder what that light is. And you look a little bit closer and it says you're low on oil in the engine. Okay, so you're aware of that and the light stays on. And then 2 seconds later, another light comes on. And you go, what's going on? And it says that the rear tire is low on air. You go, God, what the hell is going on? And so you keep driving. You say at the next gas station, I'm going to stop and I'll fill up the air and I'll put some oil in the engine so that I top everything up. Now, why am I using that example? When we have an emotion, all emotions, everybody pay close attention. You have emotions, you are not your emotions. Emotions are different than feelings. Emotions happen as an automatic subconscious trigger when your brain is evaluating something you want to do or something that you are doing against
the memory that's in there that's causing this old emotion of how you felt or what you did or what you were thinking or what you were experiencing at the time that the memory was created. So all emotions are processed at the subconscious level, and whatever pattern is associated with that behavior that you're doing right now or the incoming stimuli from the outside world is going to trigger this emotion, which then sends a neurochemical release that you feel as guilt and has the thought patterns of guilt or the emotions of being embarrassed. The feeling is the conscious awareness of the cocktail of neurochemicals that have been released, but the emotion is subconscious. So, is it possible to recalibrate a neurological pattern in the brain? Is it possible? If a pattern is nothing more than neurons that have been coalesced or connected, can you interrupt a pattern from the past? Is it possible to interrupt a pattern from the past? So answer that question. Is it possible to interrupt a pattern from the past? Right? So is it possible? Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Any pattern that exists in the brain is nothing more than a group of neurons, brain cells, that in many cases have 10,000 connections, okay, at the end of each neuron that formulate this connectedness between the neurons. So you can interrupt a pattern, just like you can interrupt and create a new habit. You can interrupt an emotional pattern, a behavioral pattern, a feeling pattern, and you can interrupt it using a variety of methodologies. You can take a pattern and you can visualize it getting smaller. You can accentuate it with colors, with animal images, with visualization, with meditation, with mindfulness, with affirmation, with subliminal programming. You can interrupt patterns, and even more important than that, based on the latest research on neuroplasticity, you can create a new pattern, and that becomes the new default pattern.
The parts of the brain that register an experience versus the part of the brain that can imagine an experience are not different. So if I imagine doing a bicep curl in my mind, I see my arm moving and I'm doing a bicep curl in my mind, I'm accessing the occipital lobe part of my brain, it is no different than me going to the gym and doing a bicep curl. So when you do both, you solidify the experience even more. Now, I want to just talk about what you just said about your partner who brings in meditation. When most people are asked to do something that they're fearful of, the sympathetic nervous system in the brain kicks in nanoseconds, not in minutes, in nanoseconds. That's the fight or flight response system in the brain. So they want to run away or they freeze and they can't do anything. But if you take that same experience that you want them to do and you have them do it in their mind first in a calm state. So first, if you have them visualize doing that and they feel nervous, but you just have them do one little thing, 6 breaths. Why 6 breaths? We know from the research now that if you imagine in your mind doing something that you're fearful of and you allow the parasympathetic nervous system to rule, that means that you're going to be shallow breathing, you're going to raise your blood pressure, you're going to activate your sweat glands, and you're going to activate all of the fight or fear response mechanism, the fight or flight response mechanisms. And that is a very tense situation to be in. What if you could take somebody and have them imagine that exact same thing, but before they take the action, they see themselves, they just take 6 deep breaths. 1, see yourself doing it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What happens is because you're breathing deeply in and out, your parasympathetic nervous system, okay, kicks in. Why? Because that is the relax response mechanism in the brain. So if you consciously activate your relaxation response mechanism, with something that would normally be stressful for you, you actually deactivate the fear center in the brain, the amygdala. And you actually open up your thinking center of your brain, the genius part of your brain that can actually override the fear center of the brain. It's a small little mechanism that you can just learn how to do. So I say you do both. Not one or. Learn both. Goes back to upgrade your knowledge and skills and saying, why am I afraid? Which system of mine, is operating right now? So think about this. When we walk into a room, we could flip the switch and turn on the light because we want more light. Well, why not flip your own genius switch? Why not flip off the switch of fear and anxiety and stress and flip on the switch of calmness, certainty, and creativity? It's your switch. We just haven't been taught how to turn one switch off and turn one switch on.
What if you said, okay, I want to make, let's just say $100,000 a year or $1 million. It doesn't make a difference. And I asked you, what do you need to believe about yourself to achieve it? So I need to believe I'm smart enough. Good. Write down, I am smart enough. What else do you need to believe? I need to believe that I am worthy. I need to believe that I deserve this. I need to believe that it's possible. I need to believe, you write down 5 or 6 or 7 beliefs that are just words on a sheet of paper. Now, let me stop for just a moment. I'm going to tell a story and come back to this. I want you to imagine that somebody tapped you on the shoulder sometime today and say, hey, I work with Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks in Hollywood, and we have this new script, okay, that if you get really good at this script where you could read it in front of a camera without the script, we'll pay you $10 million. Now, I want you to imagine you've never seen the script, you don't know how to act, but they said to you, we're going to give you an acting coach. We're going to give you everything you need to memorize the script. We're going to give you everything you need to act it perfectly. What would you do to take that script that's on a piece of paper that you've never seen before? What would you do to take that script to make it yours, for you to own it? And the answer is you'd probably read it like what, once? Would you read it maybe 100 times, 200 times, 500 times? You think you might role play with somebody while you're holding the script in your hand? Do you think you might research the role? Do you think you might take a camera and practice it? And do you think that if you practice it 1 time, 50 times, 100 times, 500 times, you can finally put the script down and you can get in front of the camera and go, boom, here is the script? Do you think you could do that? Well, guess what? A script that's on a piece of paper that you don't believe, with practice, you start to believe. So what happens if you take a belief system and you start to imprint it into your subconscious mind, initially through conscious repetition. But there are ways to access the subconscious mind that we know today that are faster and easier than just doing it consciously. And so you take a vision of you achieving your goals and dreams. You take the beliefs you need. You learn how to manage your emotions a little bit better. And then you develop the habits, which again are nothing more than neural patterns in the brain that have been reinforced. And when you learn how to deactivate the destructive ones and activate constructive ones through spaced repetition and reinforcement, now you are resetting your default way of being. Oh. So a belief is nothing more than a reinforced pattern that if you learn how to deactivate it and create a new one, it's like a software upgrade for your brain.
All we have, which everybody talks about, is this moment, this precious second right now. So the more I could be here right now, the more I'm living, the life that I want to live. I don't want to be focusing too much about the future, too much about the past. I can use those as something to, hope for in the future, as a guiding post from the past. But right now is the moment that every one of us has.
So if you take any event that's occurred in the past, if you just merely think of that event that's occurred in the past, chances are you're firing off the neural network of that pattern, right? So you can take the idea of eating your favorite dessert. What do you think is happening in your brain when you pretend you're eating that favorite dessert of yours and your mouth starts to water and you start to feel, oh, that's such a great dessert? That's neurons in your brain firing and the neurochemistry that is associated with that memory firing. Now, Let's say that you have a disempowering pattern of being embarrassed or ashamed or ridiculed. But instead of just thinking about the pattern and going, oh, I don't like it, as soon as you think about the pattern and it has I'm going to say a disempowering or negative emotion, chances are that means that the stress center in the brain has been activated. That means that your heartbeat's going to go up. That means that your sweat glands are going to be activated. That means you're going to breathe a little bit less deeply. You're going to be more shallowly. And that is the fear or stress response. Now, what if instead of allowing that to continue, you just stopped and you had this intention? I'm going to dissolve the effectiveness or the strength of this pattern. How do you do that? Well, first and foremost, you stop, you sit, and you start with inner size number 1 that I guide you through in the book. All right. And inner size number 1 is called Take 6, Calm the Circuits. So you want to move from your stress and react system to your relax and respond system. You have parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, okay, that are triggered within the body. So what happens when you sit quietly and you take 6 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth like you're blowing out through a straw? When you do it 6 times in 10-second rhythmic breaths, and you focus on the air that you're blowing out through your mouth like you're blowing out through a straw, that simple inner size is inner size number 1, Take 6, Calm the Circuits. It actually deactivates the stress, fear, embarrassment, shame, guilt circuit. And in a quiet, relaxed state, that same memory does not have the same power. But if you don't do it in that state, you do it in a tense, stressful state, you're actually reinforcing that pattern versus thinking about bringing up that old memory and doing this repetitively 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 40 times until the neurons really don't fire that strength at that strength level.
If somebody has, a fear, like where is that fear? If I have a fear of spiders and you don't, then that means that it's not the spider, okay, that's the issue. It's the meaning, the pattern that I have and the associations I have with, let's say, spiders, that's the issue. Well, where is that pattern? Well, it's in my non-conscious brain. It's in my brain. Well, what if I can disrupt that pattern using technology? What if I can disrupt that pattern using a variety of evidence-based methodologies, whether it's cognitive behavior therapies that you listen to and you participate in? Well, that is what we're doing. We're just helping people access the parts of their brain where the patterns exist, disrupt the pattern, help them create a new pattern so that the fear goes away. The emotion of fear is an effect, right? It's a feeling. So if we disrupt the pattern, we disrupt the unpleasant feeling that we call fear. So we've learned a variety of different ways that are all based in neuroscience and neuropsychology to disrupt patterns, create new patterns faster than ever before, so that people start to feel better about themselves and about anything that they want to achieve in their life.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. If you want 10 more amazing rules from John Assaraf, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
When you procrastinate, is there a benefit? When you procrastinate, is there a benefit? Think of a secondary benefit.